In the last 10 years of running my small plant nursery, I've been through all sorts of wild weather. My succulents and I have experienced severe droughts, fires threatening to burn us down, and for the past 3 years, the big wet. The record-breaking rains have changed the way I raised quite a few succulents. Before they came along, most of my 400 different varieties grew outdoors all year round. But it quickly became apparent I'll need a new greenhouse in order to be able to continue growing some cultivars. The big wet also gave me the opportunity to document what truly overwatered succulents look like, which cultivars are prone to negatively react to a lot of water, and how to fix them if they are fixable. In this video, we'll have a look at all of that, and I'll quickly touch upon how I water my succulents and what I do to help outdoor succulents to survive prolonged rainy weather. Different succulents can have different reactions to overwatering, but not all succulents will react negatively, and quite a lot will tolerate a surprising amount of water. For instance, I've had succulents such as this Graptoviria Francescoboldi go through weeks of continuous rain without an issue. But many others didn't go so well and started to develop issues. One of the first signs you may notice on succulents that have been overwatered and do not like it is quite a few yellowing leaves. They will typically be a bit swollen and mushy with dark undertones. While yellowing can be natural, if your succulent is sitting in a soggy potting mix or it's been raining a lot, take it as a warning sign. This leaf is not even fully yellow, but look at how dark it is at its base where it connects to the stalk. Yellowing leaves are dying leaves and can be caused by a multitude of things, including over and underwatering, which makes it a confusing sign. Yellowing leaves on underwatered succulents will be on the dry side and often wrinkly. In overwatered succulents, they tend to be plump and or mushy and are often accompanied by dark spots or warts. Some succulents can burst their leaves open when they've been overwatered. In my experience, this doesn't happen that often, and I've only seen it a few times on specific succulents. This here is Fenestraria rhopalophila, and it's particularly prone to splitting leaves when watered too much. However, I've only managed to achieve this when I left it out in weeks of almost continuous rain. Black and brown spots are caused by fungal diseases that are particularly prolific when there's a lot of excess water in a succulent and humidity around it. Because fungus spores travel in the air, they can also attack succulents that have not been overwatered, but they are less likely to take hold and are easily treatable by fungicides. In my personal experience, when I had certain succulent varieties out in the rain, as well as in a covered greenhouse where I controlled watering, the succulents in the greenhouse very rarely had any brown or black spots. Also, some succulents are more prone than others. For instance, every single Crassula bluebird I have ended up looking like this after all the rain. But other Crassula ovata varieties such as the Gollum or Crassula ovata itself had no dark spots at all. I did treat this succulent with fungicide, but because it's planted in the garden and I couldn't get it dry, the spots just kept coming back. The warts are just dead succulent flesh. You will often see them alongside the brown and black spots. Rot, whether it starts in roots or leaves, is caused by various fungus as well. Overwatering will help the fungus develop and attack, consuming the roots, stems and leaves. It can be identified by dark-colored mushy leaves, brown and rotted stem, and brown and rotted roots. Sometimes rot can be a bit inconspicuous and not immediately visible. I've not realized at all this Romeo was rotting until it was too late. Check out the slightly of yellow-brown color and kind of translucence. This is another view, completely rotted through. Rot is one of the worst consequences of overwatering, and I'll tell you why in the next part. If you catch the signs of overwatering early, there's a good chance you'll be able to fix your succulent and get it healthy again. Even plants like this Echeveria purple pearl can still be mended despite the rot in the leaves and all of the fungus spots and warts. Depending on the extent of damage, the treatment can be quite harsh, but you should be able to restore healthy growth. We'll have a look at 4 different overwatered succulents and see how they can be fixed. Sometimes succulents will try and preserve themselves by dropping leaves before they completely rot. The roots, the stem and most of the leaves on this succulent have rotted, bar a few leaves. The leaves have now started growing and I'll plant them into a new pot. Both these plants have got a fungal disease due to being rained on too much and will need intervention. This Graptoveria opalina is starting to lose leaves and the fungus is visible when the leaves are turned over. Here you can see the leaves split from too much water. I can't see any rot yet, but we'll make sure just in case. The first thing you'll want to do with any succulent showing signs of being overwatered is to take it out and inspect the roots for rot. If the potting mix is very wet, I'd suggest getting as much off as possible and let the roots dry. This plant is pretty dry, but I'll do it anyway for the sake of demonstration. I can't see anything rotting, but there's definitely a fungus causing black spots. Taking the plant out of wet potting mix can literally save its life if rot is present in the roots or leaves. You can remove the rotted parts, let the plant dry out and treat it. Here I'm removing all of the leaves affected by the black spots. There's quite a few, but the plant will bounce back. The leaves are breaking and so I have to force the remainder of the stalk. There's a few little dots on all of the leaves, but we need to leave them intact. To get rid of the fungus, we'll spray this whole plant with fungicide. Although I don't think this opalina has rot, when you do see it in the stem and roots, you'll need to top or behead the plant. Again, I'll demonstrate. If there was rot, the stem would have brown running through it. We'll remove the leaves with fungal disease and replant the top. This little guy will be just fine once we pot it. Just for reference, these are leaves with rot. Next, we'll spray the 2 succulents with a fungicide. I have some diluted in this spray bottle and it targets black spots as well as powdery mildew. It usually works pretty well, but instructions need to be followed and the succulents have to be placed under cover. If they keep getting rained on or be overwatered, the effects of the fungicide may diminish. You need to cover the whole of the succulent and let it dry off. I'll leave these plants under cover for a couple of days and give them a chance to dry. After that, I'll pot them up in succulent potting mix. When overwatered succulent gets rot in every single part of its body, I believe it's game over and there's nothing that can bring it back and reverse the rot. Here the rods in the whole stem and in every leaf, which means trying leaf propagation will not be possible. Sometimes when the rod has not spread to the top of the stem, you will be able to save a few leaves, but here it can't be done anymore. This whole thing needs to go in the bin. And same here, you can clearly see the brown gone through the whole stem and spreading into the leaves. Some succulents have lower tolerance to being overwatered than others, and also the fungi tend to have their favorites too. In my personal experience, some Echeveria, Pachypedum and Crassula tend to start reacting before other succulents. On the other side of the spectrum, hardy succulents such as Graptopetulum paraguayens or Graptoveria fredives etc. do not seem to react as badly, if at all. I have a video on the toughest of the tough tagged at the end. All of the plants in that video tend to be okay even when overwatered. The best way to prevent overwatering is to invest in good succulent potting mix when growing in pots, and also make sure the pots have holes. In the garden, plant on a slope or in raised beds. This will ensure water runs off easy. A lot of succulents can really suffer from overwatering when they're not grown in enough sun and indoors. Although there are succulents suitable to be grown inside, the great majority are likely to die in the long run. When sun and airflow is lacking, the soil stays wetter for longer, increasing humidity around the plant and making it easier for fungus to take hold. Watering when needed is also recommended. I usually water when the potting mix has completely dried out from the previous watering. When it's bucketing it down outside, raising your pots will help the water escape faster too. But sometimes none of this will be enough for the touchy succulents that will only really grow well under cover where watering can be controlled. This may be a greenhouse or a sunny covered patio. And finally, some succulents are just not meant to be grown in certain climates, in particular tropical areas. You would really need to do your research and find out which species or cultivars would tolerate the rain and humidity, or have a decent greenhouse with good fans to avoid this happening. And that is it for today. I hope this video was useful, and if you'd like to ask something or add anything to the video, you can do so in the comments below. To learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.